Hi everyone, this is Judy, and today I'd like to share with you the journal that I made in response to the challenge that was put out by Nick the Booksmith, that if we were on a deserted island and we washed up on shore and we only had limited resources that were in our magical fanny pack from the Disney cruise, would we be able to make a journal? And this is my take on that journal. Everyone was given 4 items to start with, or 4 givens, and that was glue of our choice. We had to use glue throughout the whole journal, the same glue. And I went old school, just regular old Elmer school glue. Paper, which I chose tea-dyed. Thread, which I'm using brown embroidery floss. A needle, and then a pair of scissors. Then we were given 4 choices, and they could be fabric, scrap paper, whatever. And my first choice was ink and a dauber, and I chose Vintage Photo. A pen, a piece of fabric, and I chose this fabric because I knew I could get a lot of mileage out of it, and also it's as in tribute to my mother, because this fabric is probably older than I am. I have had it in my stash for years, and when I was little, I had a fascination with Raggedy Ann and Andes, and my mother used this fabric to make pillowcases for me, which I still have and use to this day, even though they're falling apart, but I love them, so I still use them. And then for my last choice, I used a gutted book. And I chose this book cover because it was in pretty good shape. I didn't really have to do anything except cover the spine, and I used a piece of my fabric to cover the spine. And then I used a little tiny piece down here, and I used the sponge dauber to make a shape, and then I wrote the word journal on it and glued that to the front. And then I used a couple of strips to make my ties from. Let me get this centered. So first let me move all this other stuff out of the way. And this is my book. I used 2 strips to make ties with. And then on the inside, let's see if I can get this centered. I went around the edges with my pen and did a faux stitch all the way around. I had covered the inside of the spine with a piece of my tea-dyed paper. On the very back, I went around with the faux stitch with my pen. I took a piece of fabric and made a loop so that I have a pen holder, which I think worked out really well. And then I had to resize all my paper to fit within the journal because this is a little bit smaller. So this is how I started. First I took my embroidery, a piece of my embroidery floss, and I drew out a cross stitch and then went ahead and stitched that on the edge of the paper. And then on the inside I drew lines to fill in so that it looks like it's cross stitch on this side too. Here I took a piece of a strip of paper, fussy cut out one of the Andes and glued him to the front. I mean, it's like a belly band, but because it goes all the way through. And then on this side, I fussy cut a Raggedy Ann and put her there. And then I used pieces of the fabric to make little tabs on all my paper, on some of my paper, and did various shapes to my paper and made folds. Here I took some strips and made banners out of them and then just attached a piece of fabric to decorate the top. And with all the edges that I tore and cut off the paper when I was resizing it, I ended up with this handful of strips. But I didn't want to throw them away. I mean, the idea is to get creative with all of your pieces and make something from them. So what I did was glued them together to make a basket weave, and then I went over the whole thing with my Distress ink to color it a little bit more, and I made a tuck pocket out of one of the pieces. And then one of my fans and someone that I like to watch all the time is So Carol, and this is an idea that I got from her, where she took 3 pieces of paper, and when you fold them right, you end up with some tuck spots. So this is what I did there. This is just a strip that I cut to make a bookmark with, and I fussy cut a little Raggedy Ann there and used her to top it with. This one is just a piece of paper that I folded in half, and then I fussy cut out an Andy and put him there. And then when you slide him over, he just sits over the top of the paper like that. This is a pocket using Raggedy Ann. More basket weave to form a tuck. Strip used to make tags. Pocket. And decorative edge with the embroidery floss. On my second signature, I took 2 strips of the fabric and sewed it together to make one long piece, and then using my needle and thread, I stitched down the center and drew it up to make a ruffle out of the fabric. Basket weave paper tuck. In this, I put a couple pieces of paper together and then covered it with a piece of fabric with a Raggedy Ann on it to make a belly band. This is just a flip up with a piece of the material, and it has Raggedy Andy on it. And then this is just the back side. And then to hide the center, I had this little piece of fabric left, so I just tied it in the center to make a decorative element. Paper flips, some more basket weave tuck spot, banners, pocket, and then more cross stitch down the back. And then I wrote up here, end of story, and did some more stitching around it. And I went over the whole book with my Distress ink and over, of course, the fabric, because I wanted to make it look aged. And I think it came out really cute. I mean, it's quirky, which is me. I like things that are a little bit different. So this is my journal, and thank you very much, Nick. It was a great challenge, and it is definitely an exercise in how to be creative when you have very little for resources. Thanks for watching, everyone. Bye.